Okay, here we go.
Okay, so today I'm going to present on scaly leg mites in poultry. The reason I picked this topic is because me and my little brother at home, we breed pedigree, rare breed poultry. The two birds on screen are my little brother's Welsh black astrolorphs, for anyone who's interested. So it's quite common when you go up through the numbers of birds, like if you keep, I'd say 15 to 20 in your back garden, it's not going to be a problem, but when you start keeping a large number in a small area, we start picking up a lot more problems. So this is one of the first things we came across about 3 years down the line after we'd started. So about the mites themselves, they're non-blood sucking, microscopic ectoparasites. They're in the genus, I'll try to pronounce this now, Nemidocope. So basically there's 4 or 5 different subspecies in this genus. The main one is the mutans one that causes like the elevated scales on their legs, it can cause lameness. Another one, Galane, causes depluming, so they start losing their feathers. So basically they complete their entire life cycle on the host, on the bird themselves, so they don't live too long in the environment, so they maybe last maybe a month. That's probably stretching a little bit, so if you quarantine your birds well when you bring them in, you're not going to really have this problem. They prefer cold, damp conditions, so the summers it wouldn't really be a massive issue. So the susceptible host, there's a massive host range really. So my experience is with chickens and to a smaller extent ducks. So they're known as galliforms. So it's also in a lot of wild birds, such as, well, I suppose at home in Ireland we'd have a lot of robins and sparrows and wrens. We wouldn't really, well, in my place anyway, there wouldn't be any parrots or sort of, like no one really keeps any exotic birds around even as a hobby in my area, so you wouldn't be getting it from them. But certainly ducks and geese, there's a lot of them kept on neighbouring farms. One of my neighbours keeps a lot of geese for Christmas. So like even if you have a flock that's completely mite free, it's very hard to keep it mite free with a lot of wild birds coming in. So I suppose infestation symptoms, very simple: crusty white or scaly grey lesions on the legs mainly. It's mainly where like the scales and the legs are. Sometimes, very rarely, you'd have it on the skin, and it's characterised by a thickening of the skin where the keratin is. I've never seen it on the beak. It can also affect wattles in the comb depending on the subspecies. It's very hard to spot early on, but if you keep an eye out, I suppose if you have a smaller number of birds, you could probably spot it. You'll see like a small reddening on the legs, a little bit of swelling, they'd be itching quite a lot against things. Feather loss, that could be to quite a different, they could be molten or they could be dust bath, and it's hard to sort of pinpoint it down to scaly leg mites for that. In severe cases, my first case I came across, I think we'd always kept about 100 birds, purebred rare breeds, and me and my brother sort of had a lot more time on our hands, and we went up to about 600 or 700. We bought in chicks and went rearing them and stuff. One of the older cockerels, he got very lame very quickly, and we only realised after a while, probably we didn't know what was wrong with him for the first while. We noticed it on his feet. The scales get pulled up and sort of the pressure builds as the mites burrow underneath it, and when it gets to that stage really it's very difficult to get them back. So there's a few pictures here. That's obviously a healthy bird, nice, smooth, clean, no real issues, and there's an example, or 3 examples even, of bad infection. So you see here the mites would burrow in underneath the scales, and as they burrow and sort of infest more and more and breed, the scales start to lift, and it's very painful for the bird. You'll see them walking a little bit funny or gingerly. Obviously it'll be very, very sore for them. That's probably within, I'd say, a month of the initial infection. This is a very bad case. Like, it gets to the stage where the actual infection of the mites won't kill them. They won't be able to get up and feed. They won't be able to walk around. They'll be stuck in the one place. Secondary infections will kick in because they're just not active. And I suppose action of the mites. The mites infect the hosts, as I said before, by burrowing underneath the scales. Since they're not blood sucking, they get their nutrients and they feed on fluid that's sort of released from the cells. So as they cause damage, cells begin to leak this fluid. So this is where they get all their nutrition from. The damage they cause from burrowing can cause secondary infections. That's what causes quite a lot of the pain. And as they metabolize this fluid, crud builds up underneath the scales and causes pressure. And it's not very clean, obviously, so that's how infection can occur from that. In terms of transmission, I briefly went over it earlier. So since the whole sort of life cycle of the mite is on the bird itself, it sort of has to be direct contact from another bird. Usually, if they're just in contact for a short period, like an hour or 5 minutes, it's not going to be an issue. But if they're sort of living together or in around each other quite a lot, the mites will sort of transfer over. So wild birds are your major reservoir, so it's very hard to eradicate the issue. The major ones sort of would be poultry sales, shows, sort of stuff like that, where there's a large concentration of birds in one place. You don't know how healthy they all are, you don't know what they have, what they don't have. I'd say the main one would probably be sales, because even we'd bring birds to sales and you mightn't shift all of them, and then they'd come back, you might bring 2 or 3 back with you couldn't sell, and they might have caught something from someone else. I definitely think quarantining would be the best way. You'd probably have to quarantine them for a month when they come back. Because as they can live for 3 or 4 weeks, so if you say brought a bird back and quarantined it, treated it just like sort of in case they have it, you'd have to treat it first of all, and you treat it 3 weeks later, because as the life cycle is about 1 to 3 weeks. So if whatever you didn't catch the first time, you'd have to deal with the second time. So then, in terms of prevention and treatment, the best way of dealing with the mites is to suffocate or by desiccation. So you're basically cutting off the air supply so then they die. That's the quickest method of sort of relieving some of the pain the bird will be in. The desiccation is just basically dehydrating them so they die. Now there's no products probably licensed for this, because it's more of an ornamental or sort of a hobby issue. Ivermectin we used at home as a preventative measure, but it's not really, well, in Ireland it's not licensed for use of poultry anyway. Very small amounts. We dose them ivermectin 2 to 3 times a year, about 1/2 ml to 1 ml depending on the size of the bird. Some of the bantams you'd want to give very little to because of the body weight, straight onto the skin on the back of the neck. Then it's probably not advised by vets, but this is the best way I could sort of deal with the issue. If you have a really bad bird there who's suffering but isn't gone too far yet, to sort of kill the mites and stop more damage being caused, we'd get sort of burnt or use tractor oil or mix it with some diesel. Into, I have like an example here, you put it in maybe with some vegetable oil and mix it up into a little jar, and the way you treat it is you'd get the bird, catch them, and you'd soak them in water, their legs in water for 10 minutes. It sort of softens the scales and sort of releases some of the cruds or the build up the waste underneath the scales. Then obviously that's oil, I think that's vegetable oil in this picture, but you just sort of submerge both legs in a little tub of oil, and I did it for about 10 minutes I'd say with them. So the longer you hold it, you're just suffocating the mites and kill them. Stop more damage being caused. I do it for about a week. Like I do it every day for a week, and maybe cover in Vaseline after the oil. It sort of seals it in and stops any more air, or any more of the oil seeping out and any more air getting into the mites. The problem with treating this is you might treat it and kill all the mites and sort of deal with the issue, but it'll still look just as bad as when you originally discovered it, because poultry molt once a year, so they'll lose all their feathers. They'll also get a new set of scales, so it'll still look really bad until they get their new set of scales. So when they molt, they'll lose that set of scales and get a new set, and they'll be back as good as new. But hopefully anyway. But that's sort of the main points on this. If anyone has any questions now, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Questions? There's one. I'll let you point, James.
So if the scales still look the same after treatment, how do you know like you've gotten all the mites out?
You don't until it comes, like obviously if they get worse, you know, you haven't dealt with the issue, or maybe there's too much damage caused. But if you hold their legs in a jar for 10 minutes with oil, you'd hope you'd suffocate all the little buggers, you'd hope anyway.
Yeah, little buggers.
Yeah.
And then, so supposedly then when they molt, they get new scales on their legs.
Yeah, new
and
scales
feet.
on their legs, and they'll get new feathers, a new set of feathers.
Then you won't really know until they molt if it's cleared up.
Yeah. I'd sort of go overboard, and I'd definitely do a week
Yeah.
and hold it. Maybe if it's 5 minutes longer, holding them in the oil, or
Mm-hmm.
I put Vaseline or petroleum jelly is probably called here. I don't know what it's called, but just sort of seal it in. There's not much more you can do, cause unless they're massive value, which they're probably not. Maybe some of the ornamental birds might be higher value, but these are probably not worth that much.
No, that's what I was going to ask. The ornamental birds. You're selling them for people that aren't using them for food, right?
No, we're just sort of selling them as sort of they're a hobby.
Hobby.
Yeah, so like generally laying hens probably 15 or 20 euro in Ireland, but they'll go for 50 or 60 euro. It's more of a sort of it's a pastime really. You know?
A novelty kind of thing.
Yeah.
People own them, but they don't really use them for meat, so you're maybe not worried about contaminating the food supply.
Yeah, the only thing with ivermectin, there's withdrawal. Well, there's no. It's not licensed.
Yeah, it's not
so
licensed for poultry, you
There's
said.
no withdrawal period like known. So if like these would be sort of utility birds, they'd be laying a lot of eggs. I probably wouldn't eat the eggs for a week
Okay.
just to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the advantage of using vegetable oil or something, you're just killing them. There's going to be no withdrawal or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, so vegetable oil sounds better. Any other questions, comments? There's one more over there, James.
What did you do for the housing once you started treatment?
Oh, housing, I forgot about that point. So you pick all the birds out that you think have it, you'll move them to a new site and treat them. I'd power hose the house down, and we painted it so it sort of seals all any sort of mites that are left in there. Jay's fluid, complete disinfection will kill them. Definitely hygiene is probably the key thing when you found an infection initially.
And here's another point he made. Remember how he said they take the birds to sell or something like that? But then if you can't sell them, you bring them back?
Quarantine, yeah.
But here's the better deal. Whenever you take animals away from the farm, never bring them back. You know what I mean?
You're right, yeah.
If you can.
Yeah.
Always make it a one-way trip. That way you won't bring things
Yeah.
back. It's a good strategy.
Yeah.
If you can do it.
Yeah, some breeders at home would nearly give them away at the end of the day, at the end of the big sale, just so they won't have to bring them back.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.